Hi, my name is Carly Vige, and this is my professional development presentation for Education 357, Demystifying Dyslexia. So first we'll begin with the overview of dyslexia. Dyslexia is a learning disorder that affects a person's ability to read, write, spell, and in some cases speak. This learning disorder is often misdiagnosed as there are many related disorders. Many students are not properly diagnosed until third grade, sometimes middle of second grade, into adulthood. Dyslexia makes it difficult for one to decode words and understand how letters and sounds relate, to read fluently, to understand what was read, and to recognize even the most common of words. Dyslexia affects spelling by making it difficult to remember the correct spelling of words and spelling words incorrectly due to skipping letters and substituting sounds. Those with dyslexia struggle with writing because it is difficult for them to organize their thoughts, write coherently, and use spelling and grammar and punctuation correctly. These difficulties brought on by dyslexia cause students to feel a lack of confidence in their abilities and shy away from their true potential. This is why it is important that these students are diagnosed as soon as possible and are provided with the necessary supports in order to build them up and not have to just have that remediation when they're older to play catch up. So, as I said, there are many related disorders to dyslexia, and I have listed a few and what they contain. And a lot of them have similar symptoms, which leads to the mix up of diagnosis at times. So, there are plenty of learning disorders that have similar identifiers as dyslexia. This is a major reason for misdiagnosing at an early age. Below are a few related disorders. Number one is the developmental auditory imperception. This disorder is known as a central auditory processing disorder and makes it difficult for a person to understand and or recognize speech and sounds. A person with this disorder can hear sounds but struggles to effectively process them and may struggle with differentiating between similar sounding words and sounds. Dysphagia, this is a language disorder that causes understanding or expressing spoken and written language to be difficult. The difficulties of this disorder expand to troubles with speaking, reading, writing, and the ability to use gestures. Dysphagia is often caused by brain damage brought upon by strokes, head injuries, brain tumors, or infections. There are two types of dysphagia: receptive dysphagia, which causes difficulty in understanding spoken or written language, and expressive dysphagia, which causes the difficulty in expressing thoughts and ideas whether verbally or in writing. Specific developmental dyslexia. This reading disorder that causes difficulty in decoding skills, accurate and fluent word recognition, and poor spelling despite the carrier having normal intelligence and or sensory abilities. Developmental dyslexia causes issues specifically in the reading process of decoding. About 5 to 17% of the U.S. population is impacted by this disorder. So, more related disorders, so we're continuing with that, is developmental dysgraphia. This is a neurodevelopmental disorder that is specific to written expression. Developmental dysgraphia makes it difficult to form letters, organize thoughts into written form, and spell words. This disorder occurs in childhood and stems from differences in brain function or structure. Our last one that we have listed is developmental spelling disability. This is a specific learning disability that causes difficulty with accurate and fluent word recognition, decoding abilities, and for spelling. A major part of developmental spelling disability is a deficit in phonological awareness. The disorders we have discussed are all often associated with dyslexia and have many similar identifiers. This is why testing is so important. To know what support students need, we must be able to understand where they are struggling. If a student is given the incorrect diagnosis and are given the incorrect supports, they're not going to make any progress. So that's why it's important we assess them as correctly as possible and get the supports that best support the student in order to help them succeed not only in school but throughout their entire life as these disorders stay with them. So, Louisiana laws and educational expectations. Many people know that there wasn't much attention on dyslexia and even other learning disorders in the past. Many adults now are just realizing that they have some of these disorders, including dyslexia, and were never tested. They were kind of swept under the rug, like, oh, they're not trying, and things like that. But as time has gone on, Louisiana and many other states of America have begun to create laws to ensure that students are given the supports they need, they are assessed for these disorders, and that they are given fair and equal opportunities as their peers. So, as we have learned more information about dyslexia and related learning disorders, the state of Louisiana has created laws and or expectations to ensure these students are given the supports and or resources needed and are given the same opportunities as their peers. The Individual Disabilities Act, or IDEA, and Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 are both fundamental federal guides for the identification and intervention of students with disabilities in a K through 12 public school setting. These laws ensure that school districts provide free, appropriate public education regardless of the nature of their disability. Chapter 11 of Bullet 741 in the Louisiana Handbook for School Administrators states that the LDOE, or Louisiana Department of Education, selected screener must be administered to each student by a classroom teacher in the second half of kindergarten and to a student of any grade level upon request from a teacher, parent, or legal guardian to determine if the student is at risk for dyslexia. If the results of the screening show the student is at risk for dyslexia, the administration has 30 days, no more than that, to notify the parents or legal guardians. The Louisiana Department of Education should receive a report from each public school by December 15th that contains a number of students identified as having dyslexia in each grade level or being at risk for dyslexia, because it could also be one of the similar disorders. This testing helps schools to catch dyslexia and other related learning disorders as soon as possible to better the education for the student. Louisiana laws and educational expectations continue. Chapter 1 of Bulletin 1903 in the Louisiana Handbook for Students with Dyslexia requires that a third grade student who does not score above the lowest achievement level on the literacy screener after 3 attempts and is promoted to fourth grade for good cause in accordance with LCA 28.701 shall be screened for dyslexia. With the data showing the student's low performance, action must be taken. Requiring the dyslexia screening for these students ensures that if there is a sign of dyslexia or related disorder present, it is caught immediately. If the screening comes back negative, the school and parents will know that this is not the problem they need to focus on and continue to find the real issue to get the supports for the student. These laws were created with the students in mind. These laws ensure that they are tested for dyslexia and or related disorders, especially when there are viable signs, because it's so easy for teachers and even parents to be in denial or to just ignore the signs. So these laws help make sure that when these signs are visible, action is taken. The laws also ensure that these students are still given the supports they need and are still given the same learning experiences and opportunities as their peers. Because it's a major misconception that just because a student has a learning disorder of any kind, that they are not as capable as their peers who do not. But that is not the truth. There are many famous celebrities, scientists, everything that have learning disorders, and these students can do just as much as those famous people did. Case study analysis. So through this course, we have completed a total of 3 case studies, and they have definitely helped shape our knowledge of dyslexia and helped us to look at data and come up with an action plan and predict what we think might happen with the student and their diagnosis of what they may or may not have. So it is important to have an understanding of dyslexia to be able to properly aid educators, parents, and evaluators. If we look at Zachariah's case, who's in second grade, we see how the knowledge is beneficial. Zachariah's data says that he is in first grade. Oh, I'm sorry. That is supposed to be second grade. He's in. No, it's not. I'm sorry again. Let me take a second. Zachariah is in first grade. I'm jumping a little ahead into my later part here. He's in first grade toward the end of the academic year. So our data shows that this is the month of March. And he has been referred to an assessment clinic due to parental concerns about reading. The family has shared that there is no family history of ADHD, SLD, or dyslexia, and no early language delay. The child enjoys being read to and is read to extensively at home. His teacher indicates that he does very well with verbal learning and teacher read-alouds, and that there are no present math concerns. Zachariah has received no MTSS or school services up to this point. His test scores reveal that he struggles with phonemic awareness and decoding commonly known words. Now, to the surface, it may look like Zachariah is just, oh, he's fine. He's just not trying as hard in other areas. Maybe he just doesn't like to read. But if you have the knowledge of dyslexia and other disorders, you know that you definitely need a deep dive, especially into his weaknesses, and even look at his strengths to see what's going on and what could be a possible diagnosis. So right here we have Zachariah's test scores. As you can see, he performed within average to above average range on his WIB exam. But when we get to his graded word list, he scored pre-primer, which is very, very low. And he could not complete his reading passages due to the inability to read the first pages, and on his Dibble's Next Nonsense, he scored well below benchmark, and he should be well above that by now. To begin finding the diagnosis for Zachariah, the parents should take him to their referred assessment clinic. Now, we are not told if this happened and what assessment was given and how Zachariah did. So once the assessment data is received, the parents should let the school know what assessment was given and how he scored. Based on the data we are given, it is highly possible that Zachariah will be diagnosed with a related disorder. From the data, we know Zachariah performs average to above average on picture vocabulary, oral comprehension, segmentation, word identification, word attack, passage comprehension, and spelling. Despite what his assessment diagnoses, we know that he needs support in his weak areas. When these supports are given at an early age, the student is more likely to build their skills and have a positive school experience. If these supports are withheld until later years, which is often the case for many students, it has now become more of a remediation to try to play catch up and get the student just to where they can pass. Students who do have dyslexia typically do not get the diagnosis until the end of second grade or later, even into adulthood. Many are first diagnosed with one of the related disorders. With this knowledge, the teachers and or parents can decide to have Zachariah screened for dyslexia beginning in the upcoming academic year if they feel he has not made progress from the given supports and is needing something more. Without this knowledge, it would be easy for the teachers and or parents to settle with the first diagnosis they are given and see any lack of progress as the student not trying. Because that's also a common misconception. It's like, oh, they're not trying, but that's not the case. Causes, signs, and symptoms of dyslexia. There are causes, signs, and symptoms of dyslexia for parents and teachers to watch for in students. It is also important for adults to know this information, as they may be struggling with dyslexia and have never understood what it is or received a diagnosis. So some common causes of dyslexia are genetic factors that play a significant role, differences in brain structure and function, and environmental factors, such as early exposure to literacy can impact the severity of this disorder. Signs and symptoms that can be looked for: difficulty reading, spelling problems, delayed speech, and avoiding activities that involve reading. That last one is a heavy one because these students very much so doubt their ability to read, and they feel like they are constantly being judged and laughed at by peers. So they are going to avoid any activity that involves them having to read aloud to peers, and sometimes even to themselves. Dyslexia impacts all ages. Dyslexia does not disappear and cannot be outgrown. Children and adults see the impacts of dyslexia in their day-to-day lives. Beginning in childhood and continuing into adulthood, those with dyslexia often feel isolated and misunderstood. These feelings leave a lasting impact on their social and emotional well-being, leading many of them to shy away from conversations with others, public speaking, or other opportunities that require them to be in front of a large group of people. Children and adults with dyslexia will also struggle with reading, spelling, and etc. throughout their lives. This is why it's important for them to get the diagnosis and supports as soon as possible, because if they have these sooner than later, they will be able to learn strategies to help them with these issues that they struggle with all the way into adulthood. This is why it is important for them to get the diagnosis and supports as soon as possible. Despite the negative impacts, we can also find positive ones. A positive impact dyslexia has on children and adults is that they think more creatively than others. They are able to solve problems in create ways that others would not have thought of. These problems can span from solving a puzzle in childhood to fixing a leaky pipe in adulthood. It is inspiring to see that those with dyslexia try their hardest to prevent the disorder from holding them back from their true potential. And this should always be an encouragement that we give them, is that they do not have to let this define them or hold them back. They can go and do whatever it is they want to do with their lives, even with this disorder. Strategies for inclusive learning environments. There are many strategies and practices that educators can implement to help students with dyslexia feel included and that they can thrive. So, some are for the environment. You can have a study corral for independent work, which allows the student to have the needed privacy, as they may feel embarrassed for others to see them read. It just helps them give them that time to themselves to do it, and if they need assistance, you're right there for them. Another one is to group with peers for specific learning objectives. This helps the student to work with others and learn from hearing and seeing their peers and how they do things as well. Instruction. Read class materials orally. Many students with dyslexia perform better when they hear things orally instead of reading it. And by reading class materials orally, you are helping the student with dyslexia better succeed at the task, as this caters to their needs, allowing extra time with written responses. Students with dyslexia often have trouble writing and will benefit from this extra time as they are not watching the time tick down and feeling stuck by that. Monitor assignments. Students may become overwhelmed and try to give up, especially with a reading assignment. By monitoring allows the teacher to be there and assist when they see the student giving up and just quitting, and you can be right there to motivate them and help them in any way needed. This list is just a small fraction of the numerous strategies and practices that can be implemented to create an inclusive environment for your students. These can be easily implemented through changes in your daily routine, such as lesson plans, grouping, and activities. Resources and tools. There are numerous resources and tools about dyslexia readily available for teachers, parents, and students. It's all about just taking the time to find them. A few of them are listed below. So first we have accommodations from the Dyslexia Initiative. This is where I got some of my accommodations on the previous slide, and there's just an entire list of different ways that a teacher can accommodate these students. Next is a website called Florida Center for Reading Research. I was able to get the link for this one, and this is a website that is full of lessons, activities for teachers and parents to complete with their student, which allows that school and home to be in line and coordinate. So the student is focusing on one skill at a time rather than doing this skill at home and this skill at school and just trying to figure out more than one thing at once, which can be very overwhelming for anyone. Next, we have Dyslexia for Educators. And this is a resource that is for teachers, and it has different links to like why schools use different things for dyslexia students, how they can use these things, and it breaks down the different things that dyslexia students may struggle with and how the teacher can provide and help these students. And the last one that I chose to put on here is Dyslexia for Parents. It's very similar to Dyslexia for Educators, but it is a resource that has a bunch of information about dyslexia, what they can do to help their student, that this doesn't define their child and that they can still be everything that they want to be. And there are many more resources out there, so please go find them. It really doesn't take long. It's just a quick Google search away. But that is all I have for our presentation today. Thank you for taking the time to listen. And thank you, Dr. Harvey, for leading this course. It definitely helped us all clear up misconceptions about dyslexia and even learn new things that we probably wouldn't have learned unless it was out in the field already. So thank you so much.